When you think of the Wild West, you probably imagine rugged cowboys, dusty saloons, shootouts at high noon, and wagon trains rolling across endless plains. But there's one part of frontier life that most movies never show: the sickness. The kind that crept in quietly and killed without mercy. Behind every campfire tale and cowboy legend, deadly diseases were spreading through towns, camps, rivers, and bunkhouses. And the worst part? No one knew why. There were no antibiotics, no clean water, no concept of germs, and almost no way to stop what was coming. Life on the frontier wasn't just about fighting outlaws. It was a daily battle against filth, fever, and infection. The Wild West wasn't just dangerous because of guns. It was dangerous because of what lived inside your body. In this video, we're counting down 10 terrifying illnesses that haunted the American frontier. Some struck fast, others dragged on for weeks. But all of them left a trail of suffering, fear, and death. From cholera to tuberculosis, from blood-soaked coughs to rotting gums, these diseases didn't care if you were a farmer, a gunslinger, or a child. So saddle up, because this is the dirty, deadly truth about what really made the Wild West so wild. Number 1. Cholera, the killer in the water. In the American frontier, water could save your life or end it. Cholera was one of the deadliest killers in the Old West. It didn't need a gun or a knife. All it took was a sip from the wrong stream. The disease spread through contaminated water, usually tainted by human waste. And back then, rivers and creeks were the main source of drinking water for wagon trains and settlements. People would wake up healthy and be dead by nightfall. Vomiting, violent diarrhea, muscle cramps, and dehydration hit fast. The body shut down within hours. Entire families could vanish in a single day. The worst part? They didn't know what caused it. Many thought it came from bad air or curses. They blamed weather, diet, or moral weakness. But the real cause was much simpler and far more terrifying: their own drinking water. Cholera outbreaks followed migration routes. Wherever wagon wheels rolled, the disease followed. And once it reached a crowded camp, there was little anyone could do. In a world without plumbing, filters, or medicine, even a drink of water could become a death sentence. That's how cholera earned its place as one of the Wild West's most feared killers. Number 2. Dysentery, the slow death that leaked out of you. You didn't go out with a bang. You wasted away, one drop at a time. While cholera struck fast, dysentery was slow, cruel, and constant. It started like a stomachache. Then came bloody diarrhea, fever, and exhaustion. Over days or even weeks, the body lost everything: water, strength, hope. Victims often died not from the disease itself, but from pure dehydration and weakness. In the Old West, dysentery thrived anywhere people lived close together: wagon camps, military forts, mining towns. The problem? No sanitation. Waste seeped into the same streams people drank from. Cooking water, cleaning water, even drinking water, all shared, all infected. There were no toilets, no soap, and no understanding of how diseases spread. And once dysentery started, it didn't stop. Children, the elderly, and the weak were the first to die. Doctors, if you could find one, offered little more than whiskey and prayers. Sometimes patients were just left in the wagon to die quietly on the road. There were no heroic duels or outlaw shootouts here, just days of pain, filth, and silence. Dysentery didn't make headlines, it made graves. In the Wild West, sometimes the deadliest threat wasn't what you fought, it was what you drank and what you couldn't hold in. Number 3. Typhoid fever, the silent killer served with dinner. You didn't know it was deadly until it was already in your stomach. Typhoid fever was the result of a perfect storm: dirty hands, spoiled food, and a complete lack of hygiene. On the frontier, people often cooked with unwashed tools, reused water, and had no concept of food safety. Without refrigeration, meat spoiled quickly. Flies swarmed every dish. Typhoid bacteria entered through food, and water contaminated with human waste. Once inside the body, it caused high fevers, stomach pain, weakness, and sometimes delirium. In severe cases, it ruptured the intestines, causing internal bleeding and slow, painful death. Cowboys and settlers rarely questioned their food. If it smelled okay, they ate it. If the water looked clear, they drank it. That trust often turned fatal. The disease spread fast in frontier towns, wagon groups, and army camps. One infected cook could poison an entire community. Unlike gunfights, typhoid didn't give you a chance to fight back. It hit hard and lasted for weeks. There were no cures, only waiting and hoping. And while folks in the Wild West feared bullets and bandits, many never realized the real danger was already on their plate. Sometimes, death in the Old West didn't knock at the door. It was already in your stew pot. Number 4. Tuberculosis. The cough that killed the West. If someone coughed near you, you might already be dying. Tuberculosis, known back then as consumption, was one of the most widespread and feared diseases in the Old West. It didn't kill quickly, but it killed constantly. A deep, bloody cough, sudden weight loss, night sweats, and eventually, lungs that simply stopped working. In frontier towns, it spread like wildfire. People shared beds, towels, drinking cups, even the same bar rags to wipe their faces. Saloon floors were covered in spit. Bunkhouses were cramped and poorly ventilated. If one person had TB, the rest of the room would soon follow. What made it terrifying was how normal it looked. At first, a simple cough, a bit of fatigue. People ignored the signs until it was too late. There was no cure, no real treatment. Just rest, whiskey, and hope. The sick were often isolated or hidden away because others feared catching the death. Some families even built small shacks to quarantine infected relatives. In movies, the West was about courage and glory. But in real life, many of its strongest men died slowly, wheezing in the dark, coughing up blood, and fading away with no one to save them. Tuberculosis didn't just kill cowboys, it broke them. Number 5. Scurvy, the cowboy's curse. You didn't bleed from wounds, you bled from your gums. Scurvy wasn't a flashy killer. It didn't spread through the air or water. It came from what you didn't eat. On the frontier, fresh fruits and vegetables were rare luxuries. Cowboys lived on salted pork, beans, biscuits, and coffee. No vitamin C meant scurvy crept in quietly, rotting the body from the inside out. First, the gums swelled and bled, then teeth loosened and fell out. Skin bruised at the slightest touch. Old wounds reopened, joints stiffened, bones ached. In later stages, even standing became painful. People didn't understand the cause. They thought it was punishment for sin, laziness, or weakness. In truth, it was just the result of a long ride without a lemon. Many cattle drives, wagon trains, and mining camps saw scurvy slowly weaken their toughest men. And in some cases, it was fatal, especially when combined with other infections. What made scurvy so cruel was how easy it was to prevent. If only they had the knowledge or supplies. But on the trail, oranges didn't grow, and no one packed salad. In the Wild West, a man's strength didn't come from muscle. It came from what he could no longer find, a single piece of fruit. Number 6. Tetanus. The rust that kills one small cut, and your whole body locks up until you stop breathing. Tetanus was the silent death hiding in every nail, every knife, every splintered wagon wheel. Cowboys, blacksmiths, and farmers worked with rusted tools and rough wood daily. A single puncture wound could mean a death sentence. They called it lockjaw. But it was much worse than that. Once infected, the body began to seize. The jaw clamped shut. Muscles stiffened. Back arched. Limbs curled. Breathing became harder by the hour. There was no antidote, no vaccine, no mercy. The pain was excruciating, and the victim remained fully conscious through it all. Most people didn't clean wounds properly. There was no antiseptic, no sterile bandages. Cuts were wrapped in cloth, sometimes with dirt still inside. The infection did the rest. Tetanus didn't spread from person to person, but it was everywhere. On wagon parts, rusty tools, old nails, and the horns of cattle. Once symptoms started, there was almost no hope. Most victims died within a few days. In the Old West, you didn't need a bullet to end your story. Sometimes all it took was stepping on the wrong nail. Number 7. Pneumonia, death by cold air. The bullet didn't get you, but the breeze through the window did. Winters in the Old West were brutal. Most frontier cabins had thin walls, no insulation, and only a weak fire to fight off the cold. When the wind howled and snow piled outside, pneumonia crept in quietly. It often started with a cough, then came chills, fever, and chest pain. Soon settlers found themselves gasping for air as their lungs filled with fluid. Breathing became a battle, and one most would lose. There were no antibiotics, no emergency rooms, just wet blankets, hot broth, and desperate prayers. For children and the elderly, it was especially deadly. And once someone in the household got sick, the rest usually followed. Close quarters, shared beds, and no understanding of contagion turned cabins into traps. Doctors might show up, if you could find one. But even then, they were powerless. Sometimes the sick didn't die from the disease itself, but from the cold that came with it. In cowboy stories, heroes fall in shootouts. But in real life, many never made it through winter. Because in the Wild West, sometimes the most dangerous thing was the air you breathed while you slept. Number 8. Malaria, the swamp fever. You didn't need to be shot to shake uncontrollably. You just needed one mosquito bite. While the Wild West is often shown as dry and dusty, many wagon routes passed through swamps, river valleys, and lowlands, perfect breeding grounds for mosquitoes. And those mosquitoes carried malaria. One bite could bring weeks or months of misery. Victims suffered sudden chills, violent shivering, high fevers, and sweating so intense it soaked through their clothes and bedding. Then, just as it faded, it came back, again and again. Malaria didn't kill as fast as cholera or smallpox, but it ruined lives. Cowboys couldn't ride, settlers couldn't farm, soldiers couldn't march. The body grew weaker with each cycle, and some never fully recovered. Doctors didn't understand it. They blamed bad air from swamps, hence the name malaria. But the true culprit was silent, tiny, and impossible to escape. In many frontier regions, whole towns would shut down during mosquito season. People lit fires, burned herbs, or covered themselves in animal fat just to keep the bugs away. But if you got bitten, you waited and hoped. In the Old West, death didn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it buzzed quietly by your ear. Number 9. Measles, the child killer. One sick child meant the whole family might never wake up. Measles may sound harmless today, but in the Old West, it was one of the most feared childhood diseases, and one of the deadliest. It started with a cough. Then came a fever, runny nose, red eyes, and a telltale rash. But this wasn't just a skin condition. Measles attacked the lungs, brain, and immune system. Pneumonia, seizures, blindness, and brain damage followed. And without any treatment, many children never had a chance. In frontier homes, families slept in the same room, often in the same bed. Once one child got sick, it spread like fire. Parents, siblings, neighbors, no one was safe. Towns lacked doctors. Quarantine was nearly impossible, and many settlers still believed illness came from bad air or punishment from God. Parents watched helplessly as their children withered in front of them. Some dug small graves behind their homes, just in case. Unlike gunfights or fevers from bad food, measles didn't feel like a threat until it was too late. And when it came, it often took the youngest first. In the Wild West, danger didn't always ride a horse. Sometimes it slept in the crib beside you. The Wild West was full of danger. Bandits, shootouts, harsh weather. But for most people, the deadliest threats weren't outside the saloon. They were invisible, hiding in the water they drank, the food they ate, and the air they breathed. Cholera, typhoid, tuberculosis, these weren't rare horrors. They were part of daily life. And the worst part? Nobody really knew how or why they spread. People lived without medicine, without hospitals, and without any real understanding of germs. One sick person in a wagon camp could doom dozens. A single cough in a bunkhouse could start an outbreak. Families lost children to measles. Strong men fell to pneumonia after a cold night. And sometimes all it took was stepping on a nail. We love to imagine the Old West as bold, adventurous, and free. But for most settlers, it was anything but glamorous. It was dirty, exhausting, and full of quiet suffering. The ones who survived weren't just tough. They were lucky. So next time you watch a cowboy ride off into the sunset, remember, the real West wasn't just wild because of what happened on the outside. It was wild because of what was slowly killing people from within. If you found this video eye-opening, make sure to subscribe for more untold truths from history. Because behind every legend, there's a much darker reality.